All right, all right. Welcome to IoT Coffee Talk, everybody. Unfortunately, Leonard's not here to play electric guitar to kick us off like we normally do. I think he's at a Lenovo event with every other analyst I know. So, like in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Is it good as a name? Is it?
Lenovo laptops, man. I was watching his little clip, and this I guess it's all self-serving. The CEO of Lenovo says, "Oh, I think we've bottomed out on the PC collapse," or he's hoping that at least, And I'm like, well, of course you're going to say that. And of course they're doing something with AI like everybody else. Who knows what it is. And then I think they're doing some edge computing, which is easy if you're a hardware player. It's like, yes, here's this box. Do edge.
Because Lenovo is going to inherit like the Intel NAC production or something like that, or the edge, or no, or that's just for someone else.
I don't know. It's obviously the software and inferencing and things like that's the hard stuff. If you're a manufacturer of x86 things, anybody can just repurpose something and say, yes, here's our edge offering. It's just like the one from Advantech or whoever, or Dell or HP, which is not too rocket sciencey. So, who knows? So anyway, it looks like Steve tried to join and then died or whatever. But anyway, hey, we've got Olivier Bloch on today. He is like the famous IoT guy from Microsoft, the host of the IoT show for years and years and years, So many. How many guests did you have on over the years at Microsoft, do you think?
I think I stopped counting the episodes at 300 and something.
That's great. That's wild.
So yeah, that's quite many.
It is.
Quite many topics. And there were some like returning customers, I would say.
Yeah.
But very rarely actually. So yeah, that was a fun story, and I wanted to kick it back off because no one at Microsoft picked it up after I left. And so I was like, you know what? I created that thing, was interesting, people liked it.
Yeah.
Why not? And should I start with a new name? I was like trying to figure out a new name like IoT Show 2.0 or the Olivier Show, and then I was like, you know what? IoT Show sounds pretty good. Let's
just stick with what you got. Yeah. Well, because you already had a built-in audience. And we've learned over the years from genius marketing people when they try to change the name of something and then it just literally kills the whole product and everything. But they go, but this new name is so much better.
Yeah, it's like, or you could add a number or a year and then a summer edition, revision 5, whatever. I think we had a period where it was still CDs, like that we were shipping products in, where we didn't have room to write the names on the CDs.
It just got so long.
Because it was like freaking long names. Yeah. So IoT Show it is. It's a new channel though, because I used to do that on the Microsoft DevRel channel, and I can't do that on that channel anymore. So it's my own personal channel. That if you're curious about it, has only 2 videos right now. As the first episode with you of the IoT Show, and then it has a 13-year-old video of my son. So he was 3 years old at the time.
Yeah.
Playing around with a multi-touch screen. So put it back 13 years ago.
Okay.
Interacting with multi-touch screen was something fantastic enough for me to publish my first video on YouTube 13 years ago. And then I kind of like went off with other channels, but back to this one. So I kept that video 13 years old because I thought it was a good piece of legacy thing to have there.
Multi-touch screens. That was like iPhone's claim to fame when they launched, and they were making fun of us with Windows Mobile and Windows Phone. Or I guess Windows Mobile specifically, because we had the little plastic stylus.
Yeah, exactly. You need the tiny stick, right?
Yeah. And the plastic screens. Of course, those devices lasted longer because they couldn't break because it wasn't glass, but it wasn't cool because it wasn't 10-point multi-touch and all that stuff, and everybody's like, oh, crap. Steve Jobs just showed a 10-point multi-touch phone with glass and a glass back, too. I don't know why he did that. But we've got to hurry and copy that, I I feel like our last hurrah was the HTC, the HD 2 or something like that. Remember probably the last before you transitioned to Windows Phone, as far as Windows Mobile and HTC. I mean, HTC was like the driving force behind us, big time.
Yes, it was.
I
remember having not to lose that little plastic, pen. You had the little lanyard that was attached to it. Yeah. And then you had the extension battery pack that was coming in the back. So it was like actually getting, because one thing I was doing is I was in Paris at the time and was commuting in the subway, and I was watching movies on my pocket PC, and people were just like looking at me. What is like? What?
That's awesome.
Crazy. Yeah, that was fun.
He's from the future.
Yeah. Well, I had to burn the movies. I will not tell you where they were coming from. But
I'm sure now kind of pirate.
But it's funny how everything now get normalized. I mean, so people was asking for like streaming films 15 years ago. So finally it happened. No, some companies realized that there was a business. No, piracy could end if someone could provide like a quality service.
Right.
So nobody, I don't think nobody downloads MP3s anymore or movies a lot, right? Unless it's mandatory these days. So I think
the interesting thing, Mark, is that I download music, for example, on my watch to go on a run or whatever. I don't know what the format is. I don't know if it's MP3 or something else, and I don't care as a user, right?
That's probably the big thing. That's where we screw up all the time, is we get so focused on tech and features. The customer just cares about the outcome. They don't care about everything else. Is just plumbing,
Yeah.
Sometimes we get too obsessed with all the details like that. The customer could care less.
And that's often the doom of like early adopters or early releasers, I would say, of technology, because they focus on the technology because they have a hard time explaining the value prop or the interest. Pocket PCs, fantastic, but we're all focused on the technology, like 10 points touchscreen. Like, who cares as a user? I have 10 fingers, but I'm going to hold the phone with one. So why do I need 10 points? But and that was one of the fun things with that one. But in general, you look at the early releases of products like Microsoft tablets, tablet PCs. Like, no one believed in them, but and Bill Gates, and I don't know if Steve Ballmer did, but Bill Gates believed in them, launched them. They were too early. People didn't really realize why they needed to have a touch screen on a PC or on a laptop. And they kind of died off, and they came back, but
came back.
It was too early.
We were early to a lot of things, but didn't get credit. Apple would get credit when they would come out with the same thing. Yeah,
but it would come with the same thing with a purpose that was, and they were marketing it as in the use cases, and they were maybe narrowing down to 2 or 3 use cases that consumers would understand and would say, yes, I need that. And then we were just like, but you had that already. But no, you never told me it was doing that.
I think that was our folly at Microsoft. We clearly didn't know how to market the way Apple can. Apple's just marketing genius. You're right. We were so engineering focused, so tech focused, so feature focused. And we would talk about all that stuff. And because you're right, it's like, here's Windows XP tablet edition, SE 2002, whatever, Service Pack 7, and it's like, look at this, and you're right. I remember Bill G, in public signing off on something, kind of like DocuSign today or whatever. And it's like, this is the future. Oh my God. And then it just kind of fizzled out, I remember that was one of my PCs when I was working there. I think it was a Toshiba, that kind of convertible flip around whatever thing. It didn't take off, and then the iPad comes out. It's like, oh, it's a miracle. Apple invented the tablet, or
connecting with this, you think IoT is still too early?
Is IoT too early? That's a great question.
I personally think that it's not a matter of too early, it's a matter of how it's presented. And too often it's technology for the sake of technology. Look at my fantastic new model that runs on a tiny device and I can make coffee. Like, how's that going to optimize my production line? And we very often like saying is it a marketing problem? Is it? I'm not sure. I don't know. I think it's we technologists are excited about the technology, and we don't appeal to the decision makers because we hardly ever say it's going to save you that much amount of money, every month. It's going to optimize your production line and your worker's life. It's going to this kind of things, which are the actual purpose of IoT or goal that you're trying to achieve, are not the primary focus of the marketing of the conversation. And I don't think it's too early. I think it's the wrong messaging. It is lending.
Yeah. No, you might be right there. I think we did get focused on the wrong stuff.
And then people get excited about, you see this, to me, there's like this pendulum, analogy where we go from, hey, devices are all here, they become smart. And then suddenly, they're connected. So everything has to be in the cloud. So let's push everything in the cloud. And now the pendulum is coming back and kind of trying to stabilize, saying, hey, we need to have the data distributed and the workloads distributed. How do we do that? We need an orchestrator. We need and all of this trending, which is the promise of the thing that's going to solve everything is a new technology, rather than, hey, what are the problems you're trying to solve, and we're going to address them. Because sending all the data in the cloud was not addressing the main problem that we're trying to address. And if we're able to focus on the problems that we're trying to address rather than on the coolness of the technology or what's possible, we might go faster where we're going. I don't think it's a matter of too soon, too late. It's a matter of the right way.
Yeah, I think like the way wrong messaging early on. Remember, Cisco dove into IoT early on, and they did lots of marketing around it. And they were the ones who came up with the whole fog thing, if you remember fog computing. And but I remember the Cisco people specifically, they'd be out there and their message to everyone was connect your things. That was it. Just connect your things. I'm like, why? You had people saying, if it can be connected, it should be connected to the internet. Everything must be connected. There was no value prop. There was no use case. It was just connect your things. And then I watched Cisco go through like 2 or 3 rounds of layoffs over time when they were like, I don't know why we're not being successful. And it's like,
exactly. I'm preparing an episode with Carl Koken, was VP of engineering at Atrios, which is a division of a company looking into smart lighting and for enterprise. And one thing he was telling me is that, and a reality in his domain that is also true in other areas, is that lots of customers have tons of data from sensors and devices that they just piled on, never knowing exactly what to do with that. And they have that on some Excel spreadsheet, some database, never did anything with it. They have connected devices, connected sensors. They have tons of data, but they're just sitting on that. And he was telling me that sometimes it's a gold mine because they can rapidly generate AI models based on that data and then deploy models that are very rapidly efficient and producing value at the edge, thanks to that pile of data has been accumulated. So he's like, on a way, thankful to have had these devices connected for so long without doing anything with the data. But still, I mean, to the customers, it's been costing money deploying these devices. And there's certainly a couple of CTOs and CIOs that looked into that. Some got fired. Some tried to bury that somewhere. I don't know.
Right.
But I think it's the case everywhere.
I think you're right. Like, one of these terms that popped out over the years that a lot of people didn't know about is the thing called a historian. And to your point about piles of data, I noticed in Texas, in the oil and gas industry, lots of those oil companies had historians early on, way before we were talking about IoT. But to your point, they were just piling up data in this historian, and they didn't do anything with it. someone told them they needed to have the data, and they're like, okay, check.
Just in case you need it one day.
Yeah. Yeah. And so all these offshore drilling rigs with historians, with petabytes of data, and they're like, yeah, whatever, I'm busy. I got work to do. And they just never did anything with it. There are some early players, the folks who were like in that historian space had an opportunity to be leaders in advanced analytics, I think, if they'd seen the opportunity, at the time, because they were capturing so much data from so many systems, It's crazy.
But they were busy, right? Convincing the people to just store everything.
People are busy. Marc, you and I talk about this, and your other friend there in Barcelona with this company. We had what I think one of my favorite Coffee Talk episodes was when, there's so many IoT companies built platforms trying to have success, trying to get people to use their technology. And it's been such a struggle. And then I remember he said, we were close to the end. It's like, are we going to close down our company or whatever? And we went off, had an offsite with all the leadership. We went to the mountaintop for a weekend and we thought about it. And we said, all right, maybe we should try consulting. Maybe we should hold the customer's hand. We're asking customers to do this digital transformation thing. We gave them the tools and we weren't having much success. We were hanging on. As soon as we flipped the switch and said, hey, all our customers, we're going to bring our people out. We will still lead with our product, but our people are going to come out and we are going to help you do your digital transformation for you. And as soon as they did that, it changed everything for their company. And I know lots of product people hate the idea of being a consultant or professional services. They're like, oh, I'm not that guy. I'm not a billable consultant or whatever. Here's my product. Go use it. But in the case, at least of IoT and some of this digital transformation stuff, that made all the difference. Back to the point of people are busy at work. They already have a job. Their calendar is full. Their day is full. And then you ask them, here's this technology, because all of us built IoT systems that are self-serve, here it is, use it, like Excel or whatever, just use it. And then people didn't use it. And we were like, but maybe if we switch to low code, they'll use it, or whatever.
Or SaaS, as in it will have it locked down to being a SaaS offering and you just have to log in and look at your dashboard.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're like, what's wrong with you people? Here it is. It's easy, But I think we, at least in that scenario, learned a lesson that it's like, if you say there was a desire by the customer to transform their business, but everybody's busy. It's like, all right, we'll show up, but we'll help you.
This is why I'm still super surprised at Balina that the platform was designed this way. It's a self-serve platform. And actually, the founder, Alexander Marinos, he didn't want to have any sales. Well, there is any sales department. He didn't want to have marketing. He didn't want to do ads or anything. So, and it's amazing how we have thousands and thousands of customers with a super really complex project. Without doing any outreach, without only answering emails of leads that they already test the product, install a different Linux operating system, and use Docker containers to update their software. So there are exceptions. I promise you that exceptions exist. But as you described, probably it was a very wishful, a very wishful moment. That people thought that the marketing plans and the marketing and the business plans would happen because they were on an Excel sheet or on a PowerPoint at that moment.
No, you're right. You've had really great success with Balena. I remember when it was resin.io and early days, and go to the website and it was like some kind of video of a Raspberry Pi on some kind of assembly line or something like that. And your GitHub's going to push your software to the Balena deal on the Pi and everything like that.
I remember.
But you're right. That. That talk, when you talk about a different type of business model or marketing, you guys hear much about this whole product-led growth, PLG kind of sales motion marketing thing?
No, but you say two words in that sentence that like I know I need to look into, which is like sales and marketing. But,
Yes.
Yeah.
Many of us engineers are dead out in the street because we built great technology, but we didn't know how to sell it or market it.
Yep.
Turns out that's important.
Detail. I need detail.
Little detail. Sales. I know. I always used to be like, oh, these dang sales guys and their platinum.
I just need a couple more developers, please.
Yeah. Yeah. That was always the sales thing was always a weird deal for me in technology, because you're like, wait, we built this stuff. We're the inventors of this technology. We're the most important people. Why are you guys getting these giant bonuses and getting to go to Monaco for a trip every summer with all the executives because you hit some, quota or whatever? But over time, I got it. Silicon Valley is littered with great products that just died because they didn't know how to sell them, didn't know how to market them,
And very often, in my opinion, even in big companies, I've been in one big one lately, and marketing is involved too late. So you have a great technology, and very often the engineering team, especially if it's a company that has money, they will produce something that is fantastic from the technology perspective. And then they're looking for use cases. And they basically throw that over the fence to marketing and say, hey, market that. And marketing is just like, oh, okay, what's the audience? Let's try and find a use case, versus having marketers look at the market before any development starts and define what are the use cases that should drive the development of the features of that product. And it feels like we're not doing that anymore. We have startups popping up in all directions especially with AI these days. Like, it's a good example. They're just popping up with, so many fantastic ideas. And then you look at the non-use case and you're just like, wait a second, who wants that? Who needs that? And the other one is feasibility, scalability. It's something that comes very often after the fact. Like, you come with a SaaS solution for IoT that says, well, we can scale to 2 million devices. It's for AgTech. Oh, but they're going to have 100 sensors only on that system. Why do you need 2 millions? Why should they pay for that infrastructure? And then the company building the SaaS realizes that they have cogs that they cannot actually reduce because they scaled that thing for something that is not aligned with the use cases. Yeah. And if they had done that marketer research at the beginning, there might not be a net problem. That's the question I'm asking. I've been asking several times lately to startups came to me asking me, hey, let's review the architecture. It's like, wait a second. Why do you need to connect that thing to the cloud and have full-blown architecture here? Maybe you're better off with a box next to your devices that does the work, right? Rather than connecting to the cloud and so on. And, like, starting with a use case, starting with the outcome, starting with the problem that you're trying to solve could prevent all the rest. The problem is time to market, time to, you don't want to be last in the game. You want to be first at the risk of not being in the game at all or being on your own.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a great point.
And it didn't happen to you as well, that when you discover like a successful company, then you discover that the technology sucks, that it's just a bunch of PHP scripts that will not scale at all. And technology used like 2010 technology, but it's super successful and everything works perfect.
What did you use?
Because there's
it's super frustrating to discover this, but
yeah. Marc, what technologies did you use for the things.io?
Yeah, we use Node.js mostly, and for the front end we use Angular. I'm sure what version, and then for databases we use Redis, Cassandra, and MongoDB. Okay, depending on the type of data. So at some point you start to have depth as you develop a lot of features, but you don't take care of the new versions and new features.
Right. Right. Yeah. Losant used Node.js for their platform as well. And I think they were also using Cassandra. Cassandra got really popular with a lot of people just because it could scale horizontally so easily, but
you have to take care a lot. You have to do a lot of maintenance to Cassandra to have it scale it successfully. So it's not that easy.
Yeah.
And I think, if you require their engineers to help you, I think the fee it's like $5,000 per hour. If I remember.
Really?
If I remember well, yeah. So we had a couple of people.
That's their business model. Here's this free database that you can't figure out, but we're going to charge $5,000 an hour to tell you how to make it work.
Yeah, but this is one of the business model of these open source databases, right?
Mm-hmm. That's true, because they're always struggling to find a business model to survive.
Yeah. But that actually ties into what we were talking about earlier on, which is this notion of having to handhold the customers after you deliver a technology or a solution. And certainly the models, from my perspective, are evolving. Once again, the pendulum, like from the total DIY to we tried the full SaaS turnkey, it just works and is generic for everything that the customer will be on their own, to something that is in between, which is about a bunch of bricks, more or less advanced or functional, that you integrate. And the thing is that integration is still hard and requires maintenance, required operation. And so maybe the model is something in between that will be the most successful. Companies helping integrating bits and pieces from other companies that will just go all the way down to it works, it's there, it has APIs, it has documentation, knock yourself out. And then the integrator creates a tailored solution for the customer and then helps the customer implement it and hold the hands for 6 months, 1 year, until operators then can just deal with it and update it and manage it on their own, and then on to the next customer. I don't know. I mean, that might be this kind of model where you have this smooth integration plus, hand holding until customer is autonomous on it.
I see this mentality. I don't know. I don't know if it's only in Spain or not, but our mentality, it's like, as an engineers, I'm an engineer. I can deal with this, and during the weekend I can fix this, and it's gonna work. Yeah. So this is as well some of the feedback they got when selling an IoT platform to store data.
Yeah. But we're saying, like, they have a day job, and someone was an engineer, was working in a specific domain. They are supposed to be working in that domain, not in well, you're using tools. Like the example is the guy was building a house is using tools. If he can fix his own tools rather than go buy a new one, but he doesn't have time for that because he needs to build a house, not to build a hammer. And so he goes to a company who builds hammers and buys one, right? And that's the same thing. That's exactly the same thing if you think about it. You're using the solution, you're not here to fix it. So yes, you can do a quick, dirty fix because you're an engineer or you're capable, but the fix won't last very long. You need to update that thing. You need to upgrade that thing, and you need to go back to the company that sold it to you. And eventually that new hammer is electrical. That new hammer is this, is that. And then you evolve your solution, and then you're more efficient. You're more productive. That's exactly the same thing. Why are we complicating things? It's just exactly the same thing, set of tools.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're right. So many IoT platform companies, startups and other ones, they always put out, and I'm thinking of people I know, they love to write articles, the build versus buy article. Should you build your own IoT platform or should you buy it? And of course, the whole point of the article is to get you to buy their product and tell you how horrible it is for you to build it. And yet I kept seeing these articles all the time. And I'm like, they're really struggling. And then I realized IoT is just easy. It's easy to build platforms. The cloud part, the platform part, that's easy stuff. That's the easiest part. The hard part is the devices, embedded development. That's a small community of people. getting stuff working on devices and updating and deploying and all that, especially if it's outside and things, that's the hard stuff. Building something, I mean, we've been building crap like that forever. Sending me data, capturing data, storing data, analyzing data, outcomes, that's nothing new. We've been doing that for decades. And so maybe that emboldened, because I think we kept seeing over the years when you'd see like a pie chart from marketing about who the top players are in IoT platforms, there was always this big wedge of other that was homegrown where people built it themselves. And it was always the leader. And we're like, but they're probably building crap. But they're probably saying, what we built was good enough, what we needed. And you're like, but it won't scale to 10 million messages per second. And they're like, well, we don't have that. We just got a web server.
I think I explained this story here already, but I remember one of the first leads we had at the thing.io was a thermostat company. So I visited them because they contacted me because their platform didn't scale. They built their own database or data acquisition platform and dashboards, and they were having a lot of problems. So they test during a couple of weeks the things.io, and then I went to Madrid to meet the CTO, and he said, "Wow, this is exactly what we need. It's amazing." But something that will cost me a few thousand euros per month or dollars per month. Actually, if we are raising a couple of millions of dollars to build our own second IoT platform instead of paying few thousands, because if not, my position. So I will be in a position where what I say it's not relevant to the board members or to the CEO, because they will not trust me for the next technical decisions that I take. Because I will demonstrate that I was completely wrong every time.
That's interesting. It's an interesting perspective.
And it was funny because I met the CEO some years after that, and I asked, "Hey, how is it going?" And he told me, "We have 3 IoT platforms now, 4 products, 3 IoT platforms."
Right. Woohoo!
Well, that's, to be fair, that's also a domain that is evolving so fast that catching up on everything is hard, and being in touch with the reality of things. What I realized as well, or think I realized, is that there are clusters of functionality or needs that will naturally, like a magnet, bring together interest, and solution will start being built around that. These days, typically, I see a lot of activity around normalizing IoT data. If there's standard, like is UN something, the right thing to do, and you see boxes that come up with solution to manage them that will connect to many types of field buses and gather the data and normalize it for you. And I'm seeing like these solutions pop up, boom, 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 new one. That means there's a cluster there. And at some point, this problem is going to be solved. And maybe companies who have been developing their own solution, if they went with a smart architecture from the get-go, they can say, wait a second, that DIY part we can replace with that third-party solution, and we stop developing and maintaining our own part here and replace with that other one. And then we continue on with our own IoT platform, but that part is no longer on us because there's been another solution that is cheaper to maintain and use rather than continue maintaining or developing ourselves. And I feel that it's super important not to think about choosing the right technology from the get-go when you build this kind of end-to-end solution, but rather build it in a way that is more modular so that you can go and replace things. But isn't that what we've been doing with software for a long time? Like when working with software, you use libraries that you find online, you buy, whatever, and someday you find a better one. And so you decide to replace it. But if you've not developed things in a way that is, I don't want to go down that path of, object-oriented and modular and whatever, if you didn't go that path and build a big monolithic solution that is like a big plate of noodles under, you might be able to just evolve. Then, to this customer you were talking to, if they had built their 3 IoT platforms in a modular way, maybe they would have been able to adopt part of the thing as IO, or maybe integrate things IO into their broader solution as one part of it. I don't know. I mean,
you never know.
It feels logical to me.
It feels like, oh, gosh, you were hoping that people would be logical.
Yeah.
So silly. So silly.
So silly. My bad.
I heard an interesting quote last night. So I was at a board meeting all day yesterday and then had a dinner and reception at the University Club last night in Seattle, which was pretty fancy.
Nice.
And so you had a lot of, the Red Bison group that I work with, and it's all, networks and commercial real estate. And so there were some special guests there from big, these real estate trusts, and they own tons of skyscrapers. And someone made an interesting comment about technology in buildings. They were saying, well, they build these buildings with the thinking of a 50 to 70 year lifespan. The problem is the technology is increasing 10x every 5 years. And they don't know how to reconcile that. And you're using the word modular. I think architects who are designing skyscrapers or whatever, buildings, a football stadium, I don't know, they probably need to start thinking from the very beginning, how can my building be modular so that as tech advances over the years, I can plug in new things like you were saying, Olivier, into that, so I don't fall behind, so I don't have an ancient building that nobody wants to work in,
Yeah. And I have a good example of that story. Buddy of mine was working for the company in charge of part of the decision making for the new campus at Microsoft, like brand new buildings, supposed to be, the smart building surface of the smart buildings. And he was telling me about it, and we were discussing a lot because my team was in the middle of developing Azure Digital Twins, and it was all about IoT sensors, making sense of data, putting everything in context, and so on. And then we were drinking a couple of beers while we're talking about that, but still, he was asking me questions about, hey, electric vehicles. So I'm asked to plan for having every single parking spot with a charging plug. And I want to challenge that because it's super expensive and it doesn't take into account the evolution of batteries and electric vehicle and the smart grids, where, we start building now, we're planning for the buildings, they're going to be delivered in 5 years from now. 5 years from now, do you think every single electric vehicle will need to be charged every time they're parked somewhere? And also, like, maybe electricity feels like it's free these days, but if I have like 10,000 employees connecting all their electrical vehicle at the same time in my parking lot, what's going to happen, And he was asking the right questions because at the end of the day, do you need to have that freaking, infrastructure? Because once again, we're back to that use case. Will the use case still be valid in X years from now?
Right.
And is that something you want to invest today for that might be void in 3 years from now? Same thing for power over Ethernet. In buildings, smart buildings, power over Ethernet, that is magic for, electricians and for builders because you bring less cables. Right? And
you use Cat6 cables that you've already got going through the building.
Yeah.
And it's DC. It's DC power. It's low voltage.
It is. If
you're trying to go green.
The problem, though, is it's all green, it's all perfect. The problem is now they're deploying existing HVAC systems in these buildings, right? Things that are on the market right now. And most of them don't have support for power over Ethernet. They're not even connected.
Right.
And so, or they connect over things that don't go over Ethernet, they go over serial or whatnot. And so at the end of the day, yes, it's reasonable. Yes, it's about environment and so on. But then you have constraints, not just the use case. You have the constraints of, what you're working with today, and it has to survive for 20 or 30 years. And so it's a complex thing to architect for, long living systems. It's really not easy, but thinking about the use case, thinking about who's going to operate and what they need is important. I think it's key, actually.
So we should just build hardware as DLLs that we can just drop in new ones.
And we have a universal plug-and-play model.
That's right. All right. I got to get going to another meeting. I'm already late. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Olivier, Marc. Good discussion.
Good chat.
Probably a bigger discussion to have about hardware and things and how they can evolve in time and not become obsolete through modularity. Because, gosh, when you say you're about a building that's going to last 50 or 70 years, what really happens? These buildings are here for hundreds of years sometimes, you know?
Oh, you hope so.
You hope
Or
so.
thousands, yeah. Or
Thousands. Yes.
You need to be a visionary, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Mark, I learned that in Europe only. It's only in Europe they last
Only in Europe.
7 years.
Only in Europe. You
Now,
drive
come on,
around
in
Europe.
Mexico,
20, 30 years down.
No.
Down.
In Mexico, you have buildings that last for thousands of years.
Mayan pyramids in Mexico. That's true. So they got it too. It's not just the Romans who have ruins.
Can we count that as America or no? That...
Yeah. All right. Well, everybody, you can catch us online at iotcoffeetalk.com. Check us on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks very much for joining us. We will see you next week. Adios.
See you, Rob. See you, Mark. Bye.
Bye.